Well, I didn't think I'd get this opportunity after my probably a little too honest review of the Sirui Sniper series, but this is the Sirui Saturn series of full-frame anamorphic lenses, and these are different because they are small, they're lightweight, they're made out of carbon fiber, and they're really a response to what people have been asking from anamorphic lens manufacturers. What they wanted is sharper, cleaner images, they wanted smaller sizes, they wanted flare color options, and really in all of those respects, Sirui is answering that call and that request. So let's check it out. Packaging on this Saturn line is solid. Black box, inside there is a warranty card, service card, and some stickers, a microfiber branded pouch, and the lens itself, which is vacuum sealed. The lens comes with a front and rear lens cap, but no lens hood. The lens is solid feeling. It comes in at 468 grams, which is about a pound. Not as light as a feather, but compared to older anamorphic lenses, this is a significant reduction in size and weight. The design is simple overall with a carbon fiber accent here. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount, no electronics, and no weather sealing. It is good to note that these rear mounts are not swappable, so buy them out for your camera. First ring here is T-stops, T2.9 to T16. It's nicely smooth with good dampening. Next ring is the focus, which is labeled on either side just like the aperture. Not much rotation here, just over 45 degrees in fact. But the focus ring is smooth, requiring little effort to rotate. There's a little blue ring inset at an angle, which is a nice touch, and beyond that carbon fiber there is an etched logo, lens specs on either side, and anamorphic 1.6x FF on the bottom. Around the front there is a rectangular element, Sirui logo, minimum focus distance of 3 feet, 62mm filter thread, and anamorphic 1.6x FF again mounted on my A7C. It's a nice little combo, definitely packable on a trip, which you can't say about many other anamorphic lenses. Now the most important part of an anamorphic lens is its performance, and this is very subjective because some people like more flaws, some people like fewer flaws, some people like no flaws whatsoever, and even something like the flare color is customizable with this line of lenses. So you can choose the traditional blue flare, which I chose for this lens, or you could go with the natural look, which just mimics the color of whatever your light source is. Anyway, here are some samples with this lens. I used my Sony a6700 for a lot of these, and then a little bit with my Sony a7C, so let's check them out. Now the first thing that I'll say is optically this 75mm is sharp wide open. Anamorphic lenses, even the most expensive ones, are not generally known for their sharpness, but this Saturn series is a sharp set of lenses. Now the 75mm focal length gives you about a 50mm horizontal image, so for me this was plenty usable for portrait-like video framing, and after you de-squeeze the footage you get a nice wide aspect ratio with natural black bars on top and bottom. And when I look at an anamorphic lens, I'm really looking at three key things. Number one is the squeeze factor, number two is the bokeh, and number three is the flare. The squeeze factor here is 1.6, which isn't the 2x that most professional quote-unquote movies are shot with. That being said, with a 16:9 sensor, the 1.6x de-squeeze gives you a perfectly usable widescreen image. The problem with 2x oftentimes is when you de-squeeze it, you get a thin strip of an image, and then you end up cropping in, which effectively reduces resolution because you throw so much of it away. So in my eyes, the 1.6x squeeze gets a thumbs up. The bokeh with this 75mm is pretty good. Again, what most people are looking for is those long ovals or waterfall bokeh, and you get a little of that effect here, but not a ton. The bokeh balls are oval though, and fairly smooth and not distracting. The only negative about the bokeh that I saw is some color fringing at the edges, green to purple depending on the light source. Apart from that, the only way to really improve the bokeh would be to make this a T2 lens instead of a T2.9, but that would come at the expense of sharpness and size most likely. Lastly, let's discuss the flare, and this is the most subjective thing about anamorphic lenses. There are some that flare, in my opinion, too easily, and there are some that flare barely at all. This lens is at a good medium where it doesn't go crazy and create a distracting image every time you use it, but it does flare bright points of light to create a different feeling. And again, you could get this lens with warm or natural color flare, but I went with blue just because in my eyes, it's more classic. If I'm going to own an anamorphic lens, I want it to make my shots cool in color and leave blue streaks at night, but that's just me. There is a bit of ghosting with this lens, and the flare usually duplicates itself on the image, which is common with these style of lenses, but not preferred. The last thing that I'll mention is that even if you get a bright light source to hit the edge of your front element, that will flare in a big way across the screen. Some people may like this, others may not, but that's just how this lens reacts to the light. So in those three areas, this lens performs well in my eyes. And I think that if you are a cinematographer and you're looking for that anamorphic look, you will be very happy with this as long as you're okay with the few little compromises. The last two things that I want to mention is chromatic aberration and focus breathing. I shot everything wide open on this lens, and there is a bit of color fringing on contrasting edges. It's not overwhelmingly high, but it is there. If you are looking for an anamorphic lens with no chromatic aberration, this isn't the one for you. But again, it's marginal. I don't see it as a deal breaker, except for if you don't like seeing fringing on the edges of your bokeh. And then as far as focus breathing, this lens has some, perhaps more than I expected it to have. I think this is probably another compromise resulting from the size of this lens, but it is worth noting that focusing will cause a bit of a shift in composition. Overall, I think that this lens is a compromise between, let's say, the clinical perfection of a normal spherical lens, such as this Sigma 85mm, and what you normally get with an anamorphic lens, which is just a bunch of different distortions and flaws. And really, if you want to put it somewhere on that scale, I think it's a little bit closer to that clinical style of lens, just because it's very sharp, wide open, and it's a very clean image as a result. Obviously it has flare, it has the somewhat oval bokeh, but optically it's near a normal lens. And that may suit some people, it may not suit other people, but I think this is a smart move by Sirui because it effectively makes it easier to make that choice, because it used to be that you had to choose between a sharp lens and with good contrast in colors and a lens that has some character and a little bit of flaw. But they've managed to mesh those two things in a package that's very compact, that's lightweight, and relatively affordable when you compare it to other anamorphic lenses. This is not a cheap lens by any means, but again, compared to other anamorphic lenses, it is on the affordable side of things. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for all of your comments, all of your likes, and your support. Stay tuned for more, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.